Why? Why not me, but you in a wheelchair? I, in a wheelchair, had my face approached by my husband, who shouted loudly. With my wheelchair, I had no way to resist as he shouted and confronted me. Mark, let's calm down and talk. Please, calm down, okay? Calm down? I've always taken care of you with mobility issues, haven't I? Whether it's work or at home, I've always looked after you. So, why is this happening? Terrified by him expressing his inner thoughts with an unusual look, I felt a danger to my own life. Right next to me, a waterway flows towards the sea. The sea is nearby, and the current is swift. The waterway is probably less than 1 m deep, but if I, with limited mobility, fall into it and get carried into the sea, there's little chance of survival. He is being insane. He might be so agitated that he could push me into the water. Someone like you, someone like you. His face gets so close that I feel his spit. Pinned down by the strength of a man, I couldn't escape. Someone, please. As expected, he exerted force trying to push both me and my wheelchair into the waterway. In an instant, my body tilts, and it feels like I'm being sucked into the waterway. You're a hindrance to my life. Disappear from my life. Clinging to his arm, I exerted strength to avoid being thrown into the waterway. Stop, I get it. I understand, so please stop. Shut up. However, my resistance was in vain, and I was thrown into the waterway along with my wheelchair. I am Mia. Now 33 years old, I have been living in a wheelchair for 12 years due to the aftereffects of a traffic accident. It happened when I was in the 5th grade. On the way home from school, chatting with a friend about our classes, while crossing the pedestrian crossing, I was involved in a collision with a large truck making a turn. My friend, who was with me, seemed to have been lucky and suffered only minor injuries. However, I lost consciousness and was transported to the hospital by an ambulance. The doctor explained that due to damage to my cervical spine, there was weakness and numbness in both lower limbs, and I could no longer walk. At that time, I couldn't comprehend the significance of these explanations. However, I just understood that I could no longer play or engage in physical activities as before. And this realization was a significant shock for me. Since it wasn't a complete paralysis of both lower limbs, I could walk indoors with the help of handrails. But outdoors, I needed a wheelchair. The most difficult thing for me was having to go to school in a wheelchair. I disliked being looked at with sympathy and curiosity by school friends, and I resented the fact that my body had become limited in its abilities. My parents assured me that they would do everything possible to support me and lift my spirits in the face of my physical limitations. Thanks to remodeling our home to be barrier-free and adding handrails to all the walls, I no longer needed a wheelchair inside the house. Furthermore, my father being a wealthy company owner meant that a dedicated driver could take me anywhere I wanted to go. With my inherently competitive nature, I gradually developed a strong determination not to be defeated by my limited body. If I couldn't engage in physical activities, I decided to focus on academics. By the time I entered junior high school, I had even started ranking high in national standardized tests. Mia, impressive. How do you study to get such good grades? Mia, teach me how to study. As a result, my classmates showed less sympathy toward my physical limitations. Moreover, gaining self-confidence allowed me to gradually accept my limited physical abilities. As a high school student, I started making various friends, and even began going to movies and meals with friends who would push my wheelchair. With the support of those around me, the stigma of having a disability had diminished. However, there are still things that I simply have to give up on. Josh is so cute, don't you think? Yeah, I think so too. As high school students, discussions about romance often become lively among friends. However, I couldn't actively join conversations about romantic interests. With me in a wheelchair on every date, who would willingly be in a relationship with me? At that time, I had this strong reservation and had given up on romantic relationships. My father built his company from scratch. It's a company primarily focused on developing disaster prevention products, and has been steadily growing. After graduating from university, I joined his company. Upon joining, I learned for the first time that my father, as the company president, had earned deep trust from the employees. Motivated to catch up with him, I worked diligently without relying on my physical limitations as an excuse. After working at his company for 5 years, one day, I was summoned to the president's office. Come to think of it, Mia, you and Mark from the development department started at the same time. How about meeting Mark for a date? Why all of a sudden? A date? I mean, look at me in this condition. I heard from the head of the development department that Mark has a crush on you. There's no bad gossip about Mark either. Why not just have a meal together, at least for once? I know of Mark. He's a diligent guy, even among our peers. He's quiet and doesn't often express himself, but I've heard he's reliable and diligent in his work. I never expected that Mark harbored feelings for me. I'm well into my late 20s. Maybe it's not a bad idea to have a meal with a man once. Thinking that way, I decided to have a meal with him. You are the most wonderful person I know. I'm sure you've faced various challenges, but you've lived powerfully without showing it. I want to be your support. Although I had once given up on dating, it would be a lie to say I never dreamed of it. His words during our first meal made me happy, and after a few dates, Mark and I officially started a relationship. 1 year passed, and we decided to get married. Thanks to him agreeing to living in my parents' house, made barrier-free for me, our new life began with my parents, Mark, and me, a family of 4. Mark and I were transferred to the president's office when we got married, and both of us began assisting my father, who is the president. And then, after a few years without children, our family of 4 continued to lead a happy life. Mark always prioritized me, both at work and in our family. Moreover, he got along well with my parents. Whether at work or at home, there might have been unpleasant moments due to the president being present. But he never showed such a face even once. I was grateful for him. However, such happy days did not last long. My parents' car, driven by them, was rear-ended by a large dump truck that ran a red light. They died instantly. The funeral for my parents proceeded smoothly with the support of the company. The grief over my parents' death was not mine alone. Many employees felt the same way. However, we couldn't afford to grieve endlessly. The sudden death of the president, who was also a pillar of the company, led to unfounded speculation about the company's survival and employee retention. This urgent situation necessitated the immediate convening of a board meeting. We would like to request Mia, the biological child of the previous president, to take on the role of the second-generation president. It is believed that spreading the news both internally and externally, that a direct descendant of the previous president is taking over the company, and that our company's management policy and employment situation remain unchanged, will be in the best interest of our company. We should announce this as soon as possible. In the emergency board meeting, I was unanimously chosen to succeed as the president. In an effort to meet everyone's expectations, I dedicated myself to the role of president, ensuring that my physical disability wouldn't be seen as a hindrance. As a result, the reputation of being the daughter of the previous president began to follow me, and a sense of reassurance spread among the employees. And then, on a day when the management had become more stable. Since things have settled down at the company, How about going out for dinner together? I found a nice restaurant by the sea in the city. Invited by my husband, I realized that we had been too busy lately to spend time together as a couple. Agreeing with his suggestion, we decided to go out for a meal. Due to his quiet nature, he doesn't often express himself openly. There wasn't much conversation during the drive on that day, but driving under the blue sky was a pleasant experience. Since we're here, let's take a look at the sea. Upon arriving at the chosen restaurant and parking the car, we decided to take a stroll by the seaside. In my wheelchair, pushed by Mark, we headed towards the seaside breakwater, enjoying the refreshing sea breeze. The beautiful sunset by the seaside, a sight I hadn't seen in a while, prompted me to take out my phone and capture numerous photos. Although we weren't talking about anything specific, it was still a calming moment with Mark. However, it was short-lived. I began to feel uneasy as we were gradually heading towards a desolate and unpopular area. Hey, Mark, isn't the restaurant in the opposite direction? There was no response from him. Mark, are you listening? I turned around abruptly while still sitting. There was my husband, silent and gazing into the distance. Sensing something was wrong with him, I gripped the wheelchair's handrim, attempting to stop the wheels. However, the force pushing his wheelchair didn't weaken. Stop! What are you doing? Finally, the wheelchair came to a halt beside the water channel, leading to the sea. Unlike before, the scenery wasn't pleasant, and it was a desolate place with no people around. He came around in front of me sitting in the wheelchair. He then grabbed the wheelchair's armrests with both hands and forcefully brought his face closer. What are you doing? I pushed my back firmly against the backrest, recoiling. Mia, how long do I have to be your protector? I didn't understand what he meant. What had suddenly come over him? As those thoughts crossed my mind, and I couldn't respond immediately, he yelled at me loudly. Say something. I've dealt with your parents, taken care of you, and done everything for you. Why are you the president? What do you mean? Why is a wheelchair-bound person like you the president, and I, your husband, being used like this? It was the first time I had seen Mark express his emotions so intensely. I thought that if I married you, I would eventually become the president. That's why I married you, a wheelchair-bound person. Calm down, Mark. I am calm. For years and years, I've taken care of you, believing I would become the president. I finally understood what was in his heart. He had been thinking this way throughout our life together. What was the meaning of my married life? Had he married me just because he wanted to sit in the president's chair in the future? However, now is not the time to be depressed. I don't know what he, who is acting strangely, will do. Considering the reason he brought me to such an unpopular place, the worst-case scenario is possible. Right next to us is a water channel leading to the sea. It's not deep, but the current is fast. If I were to be dropped here and carried away by the sea, there would be no chance of survival. Mark, what do you want? It's obvious. You're going to hand over the presidency to me. Everything, the company and all, you're going to surrender to me. Promise that right now. His face forcefully approached mine. I understand. I promise. I'll hand over the company to you. The president's seat is yours from now on. However, he didn't settle with that. He exerted force, trying to lift the wheelchair I was sitting in. Indeed. It's true. From now on, I'm the president. Yes, that's right. So let go, please. Then you're no longer needed. Disappear from my life. Wait. There was no way that I could resist his strength. Ignoring my resistance, he pushed me, wheelchair and all, into the water channel. Help! Ha ha ha! Drowning in such shallow water? As part of your rehabilitation, swim back. At a seaside restaurant bustling with many people, Mark sat at a table, satisfied, raising his beer. Phew! It's been a while since I had such delicious beer. Starting tomorrow, I'll be the president. For today, I'll have the employees come this far to pick me up. I'll figure out the car later. Then, a man approached. Mark, upon seeing the man's face, trembled and hastily stood up. You are, if I recall correctly. Do you remember me? It's been a while. Facing the calmly speaking man, Mark started speaking rapidly. What is it? Do you have some business with me? I haven't done anything wrong. Why is the police here? The man who spoke to Mark is a detective who had recently come for security rounds at our company. Due to an increase in burglaries in office buildings and stores in the city, he explained that they were patrolling and raising awareness. I was just patrolling around and stopped by this restaurant. So what? Why you don't have any business with me, do you? The fact that Mark became flustered when approached by the detective suggests that he might be conscious of some wrongdoing. You see, a few hours ago, we stopped by this restaurant once again. Then, it seemed like the employees were in a hurry. So, when I asked, they mentioned that while adjusting the surveillance cameras, they noticed footage of people seeming to be in a dispute near the waterway behind the restaurant. So, we're on our way to check it out now. I went to the waterway as well. What does that have to do with me? Watching the exchange between Mark and the detective from a hidden spot in the back of the restaurant, I couldn't bear it any longer and, placing my hands on the wall, approached him. Everything, isn't it? Mia, you. Pushed into the waterway and thinking it was over, I managed to hook my fingers onto a gap in the wall, to prevent being carried away to the sea. However, I quickly grew weak. As I seemed about to be swept away by the water's current, several men jumped into the waterway and rescued me. The men turned out to be restaurant staff and the detective. Explaining the situation to them that my husband had pushed me into the water, it was decided that if I wasn't injured, I should go to the police station to change clothes. At the police station, borrowing clothes and explaining the details, we received information that Mark was shamelessly drinking beer at the restaurant. We rushed there immediately. You're Mark, right? You're under arrest for attempted murder. The detective grabbed his arm. Wait, it's not like that. Please wait. I was thinking about my wife. How is it different? What do you mean, thinking about me? Lost in anger, I raised both hands and nearly lost my balance, almost falling. However, the detective quickly helped me. Mia, please have a seat first, but... Once I confirmed I was seated, he cast a stern look at Mark. Mark. As I mentioned earlier, the cameras in this restaurant recorded what seems to be a dispute between you two. There's no denying it. No, it's different. I thought my wife needed rehabilitation. Yeah, that's right. It's such a shallow waterway, she shouldn't drown. I heard she used to go to the pool for rehabilitation when she was a child. Lately, she's been saying she wants to swim because of a lack of exercise. That's it, that's the truth. Whether he realized how incoherent his words were or not, he wore a triumphant expression. What are you talking about? You told me to disappear. I didn't say anything like that. Can that camera record sounds from such a distant place? There's no way. There's no evidence that I told her to disappear. Well, we have your wife's testimony. It's a lie, it's a lie. I didn't tell her to disappear. I'm saying I did it thinking about her. Mark. So you admit to pushing your wife and her wheelchair into the waterway. It's not normal to drink alcohol afterward without helping. Come to the station, we'll hear the details, and no, it's different. Please listen. Throwing a tantrum like a child, Mark, with his arm held by the police officer, was taken away. During his detention, various pieces of information came to me through my private lawyer. Initially, during the questioning, it seems that Mark kept saying, "I didn't intend to drown her. There's no way someone would drown in such a shallow waterway. I thought my wife could swim since she learned swimming from a young age." He seemed to believe that he wouldn't be charged with attempted murder because the restaurant's surveillance video, which was considered evidence, had no audio. However, things didn't go as he expected. The incident of him pushing me was all recorded on my smartphone. At that moment, the view of the sea from the breakwater was beautiful, and wanting to capture the scenery I liked in a photo, I had my phone in hand the entire time. This turned out to be fortunate. When I realized something was wrong with Mark, I pressed the record button on my phone. 2 days after he was taken into custody, his lawyer visited the company. I decided to have a meeting with the lawyer, with my personal attorney present. Your husband is deeply reflecting on his actions. How about arranging a meeting? Upon learning about the attempted murder charge, he seems to have realized the seriousness of what he did. This is an apology letter from him. Could you accept it? The lawyer hired by Mark attempted to give me an apology letter written by Mark during his detention. However, without even opening the letter, I tore it up in front of his lawyer. Could you not make a fool of me? Despite pushing me, someone with a disability, along with my wheelchair into the waterway, he kept insisting he didn't initially intend to kill me. Then, suddenly apologizing when he found out about the recorded data on my phone. I've heard from my lawyer that there is a significant difference between being charged with attempted murder and being charged with assault. It's unimaginable that my husband would have a change of heart now. He's simply afraid of being charged with attempted murder. I will never forgive him. I was pushed into the sea. It's embarrassing to think I once believed life with such a husband was enjoyable. Besides, I am in the process of divorce, so he is no longer my husband soon. Please leave. I had sent away his lawyer. However, the next day, now it was his parents who came to the company. Please. Forgive Mark and withdraw the charges. You, with a disability, have been taken care of by Mark all this time. Can't you repay that favor? If our son is charged with attempted murder, we won't be able to face the neighbors. Mark's parents did not offer any apology to me. Instead, they only pleaded for their own interests. The decision to prosecute is not mine, but the prosecution's. However, I will never forgive your son for attempting to kill me. I expelled Mark's parents from the company. I then asked the security guards to ensure they were never allowed in again. Later on, I heard that they were spreading lies in the neighborhood, claiming that I, the evil wife, fabricated a story of attempted murder to prevent their son from becoming the president. However, due to their previous boasts about their son becoming the future president, nobody believed them. In the end, Mark was charged with attempted murder and faced trial. With that as a turning point, I began preparing for a new life. I decided to sell the family home, where I had lived for many years, and buy a new condo, a fully barrier-free one with on-site security. The house where I had lived with my parents held many memories, but it was too spacious for me now that I was living alone. I have no intention of informing Mark and his parents of my new address. I also have no intention of overlapping with the company's premises. I intend to sever ties with them. As someone who cannot go out without a wheelchair, hiring a helper allows me to lead a comfortable life at home. Work is going well, and I have the trust of both employees and business partners. The company's management is currently smooth. I'm determined and don't like to lose. Despite the various hardships in life, I plan to continue living resolutely and not be defeated by anything.